So Flo Spos. 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 You're watching So Flo Spos. Eric Spolstra, not affiliated. So Flo Spos. South Florida Sports. South Florida Sports. Bitch. South Florida Sports. So Flo Spos. Welcome everybody to the inaugural episode of So Flo Spos. And no, it's not anything having to do with Eric Spolstra and his so flow. This is all about South Florida sports. We'll definitely touch on as many topics as, come to our forefront. But the truth is, we're going to focus mostly on South Florida sports, which is definitely a passion of mine. I'll give you an introduction to myself. I am the DJ, MC, producer, manager of the show, Benny Swella. Definitely real excited to get the podcast started. I definitely think it's an interesting time for South Florida sports in particular. The Panthers are two-time champs. They're going to go for their third this year. They've made the whole city, state, hockey fans. I'm here for it. I love it. It's going to definitely be fun to watch. In other news, right now the Heat are off. They're still playing in Eurobasket. Supposedly Pelle Larsson is balling and some others doing their work. I'm looking forward to that season 2. I hope we make some kind of move because I definitely think we're on the precipice of seriously competing. Right now we're still, I think like around a 6th or 5th seed. I think if we could definitely get one more superstar, we would be championship contenders because the East is weak. But, all we need to do is make it to the finals. You saw this team do it before several times. I think they could do it again. If we had a Jimmy-esque type player to come play with it. I think Norman Powell is an incredible addition. I think he's going to do great things for us. He's going to be the point guard type player that we lost with Kyle Lowry. I know he's not a point guard, but I'm saying he definitely facilitates. He's a slasher, a three-point shooter. I think that he's going to fit this team incredibly. I hope we re-sign him, if he shows up, because I think he is going to show out and he's going to demand a higher salary next season. But if he's worth it, I'll spend the money. I definitely think that we need to be exploring trades the whole season to try to make a move to put us over the top. I trust Pat Riley and Mickey Harrison. They have not steered us wrong before. They've kept us in contention. We missed out on a few championships in recent years. You have to be grateful for where you've gotten. And the journey was incredible. Those seasons, the bubble season, the other season where we went to the finals and we took the Bucks out in the first round. That was just a great season. I appreciate those journeys for what they were. That was a great team. I think if Jimmy had stuck around and maybe we had Norman Powell, maybe this team would be pretty decent. I don't know, but of course, I'm not here to rehash anything. What's done is done. And we're definitely moving on without Jimmy. I hated that trade. I thought we got a kind of, taken advantage of. We usually do the taking advantage of to other teams, but I think that the fact that Jonathan Kuminga has had such issues after the trade, I don't know why he was not included in the trade for Jimmy to begin with, even if it was just straight up or with a pick. If he was worth that much, why didn't we get him? And I think that was, I thought it made Pat Riley look bad. Or that move made look bad. I thought we were eager to get out of Jimmy. He was causing so much drama that we literally had to take the raw end of the deal. So I understand it, but it definitely I didn't like it. But I do think that the first move towards getting back to contention was getting Norman Powell And I think that that's going to be, exactly what we needed. In other news, the Dolphins. Oh, this is the reason why I actually started this podcast, because there was so much to talk about with the Dolphins. They are just horrible. They are so bad on so many levels that at this point it's approaching negligence on part of Stephen Ross, the owner. And Chris Greer, it's negligence on him in reality, but the difference is that he's doing anything to keep his job. He should have been fired years ago. There's no one who doesn't know that. There's people who speculate that he has some kind of inside information on Stephen Ross simply because he's been tenured for so long and done such a bad job, and he's still, with the team. What kind of other job has that kind of job security where everyone's like measured on metrics, and there's so much analytics on how his drafts do, and how people he doesn't resign go on to do greater things, like Andrew Van Ginkel, letting go of people, just to like not have them replaced. There's something weird going on there, which I'm going to delve into deeper in a second. But yeah, definitely, this is one of the reasons why I'm looking forward to this season. I am a huge Miami Dolphins fan, but I'm not going to, mince words. The truth is that I'm going to be hate watching this season, and I am going to be cheering for us to get destroyed as much as possible each week. So hopefully we can finally make a change at general manager, so Stephen Ross can be like, oh my God, this team is such a mess that we need to make a change in season. Something to that effect. I hope. Right now we just got mollywopped by the Indianapolis Colts in what I thought was probably the worst home opener I've ever seen from the Miami Dolphins, and possibly from any team. We came out so uninspired that it was shocking. It was shocking. I thought, I'll be honest, I haven't had faith in Chris Greer for years. 2023 was an outlier, and I really kind of jumped on the bandwagon there for Mike McDaniel. I thought that he showed that, man, he could create a very productive offense that was explosive. That was kind of what I had always wanted to see in the Miami Dolphins. And in 2023, I saw it. That 70-point game against the Broncos, that was like a dream watch. I never imagined we would ever score 70 points. I never imagined we would score 50 points. I've always been happy when we got to 30 points, because literally it was so difficult for us to score after Marino. I've been a Marino fan. I've been a fan since Marino, but the latter years. So I never saw his heyday. He never won a Super Bowl. And after he left, this team has really been, the Jason Taylor, Zach Thomas years. I like them. That was, like kind of the prime of, when I started being a fan. And they were great. They were great. Jason Taylor, Zach Thomas, Sam Madison. That defense, was great. And we had mediocre quarterback play and running backs as well at times. But, ever since then, it's just been mediocrity. Even since then, because, like Jay Fiedler, he was like, to me, the epitome of mediocrity. But like everyone we've had at quarterback, all the people we have making decisions at general manager, coaches, have all been mediocre at best. To me, they've been actually below average, mostly, especially, let's say, the coaches. Man, think about those coaches. Philbin, Sperano, Cam Cameron, and then Adam Gase, there's a lot, and they were all bad in hindsight. So it's like nothing here has really shown me any change. And I think the real, the epitome of it we touched on before has been Chris Greer. We have all of these have measures ever since he's been GM. We fire the coach, but we leave the GM. And literally doing that has kept Chris Greer making all of the decisions. And those decisions have all been questionable. We can go through them. The best thing that Chris Greer ever did for the Miami Dolphins, I think roster move-wise, was getting Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill automatically made the team explosive, made the offense explosive. You could tell, that first year, whether he's lost a step or something is changing that dynamic, it does seem like that is the case. But initially, man, he was just incredibly explosive and really productive out of the gate. And I think that move wasn't really a Chris Greer move. It was a move that fell in his lap. Tyreek Hill had a contract dispute with the Kansas City Chiefs. They didn't want to pay him what he wanted. And so he asked for a trade, or internally wanted a trade because he wanted to get paid. And the Kansas City Chiefs told themselves, what are the two teams that we think we could give this guy to and he won't affect us? They chose the Miami Dolphins and the New York Jets. And luckily, we won out somehow. Maybe the warm weather, whatever it was, lack of state income tax, whatever it may have been, we got lucky and we got him. And that's been his greatest move. Other than that, the only thing that I think other people would say maybe his greatest move was drafting Laramie Tunsil, the left tackle, which we traded all those picks for, which he, wasted away. But that move also fell in his lap. On the day of the draft, Laramie Tunsil came out with a gas mask, smoking God knows what, and it made him drop to us. He fell in our laps. It was luck. Chris Greer would not have drafted him otherwise. He wouldn't have gotten the chance. And he would have likely drafted another bad pick, because I'm not going to go through all the draft picks. I don't even have that information in front of me, but I know them all, like from Charles Harris, Liam Eichenberg. And when you can talk very loosely in hindsight, but I was talking trash a lot while things happen. The difference is that I've been talking trash a lot for years now, and it's just like it falls on deaf ears. And every year people think it gets better. And I think this year is the epitome of how everything is coming crashing down. I think that these people are kind of drunk on their own hubris. They think they make better decisions. By they mean these people, I mean Chris Greer, the Miami Dolphins front office, and they keep it very convoluted. They don't let you know who's making the picks. So it's like you can't even put blame on anyone. Chris Greer is saying that this guy has got input on this. Before Flores had this input. Now Mike McDaniel has this input. So who's making the picks? Who can we fire? Who can we hold accountable? It's like we don't know. We don't know who to hold accountable. But I know who to hold accountable. The guy who's been here the whole time. The guy who's been here the whole time while this team has been mediocre at best. They had one good year, 2023, and it's been a bunch of mediocrity all around before and after. So, and this year just seems absolutely horrible, at least so far. It's only been one game, but like I said, that was one of the worst Miami Dolphins games I've seen in a long time. I truly turned it off, I think maybe halfway, maybe even a little bit more or less. I checked in, but it was always just knowing it was getting worse and worse, because I saw that it was every play was horrible. But we'll get to that. Like I said, Chris Greer, with his bad drafts this year specifically, he drafted a DT again in the first round. The first one was, we all know, Christian Wilkins. He turned out to be a stud. I love that guy. But if you even if you're watching, the reason he's not here right now is because they don't put a lot of value on the defensive tackle position. There's no defensive tackle that you're going to draft that's going to change your team. And the truth is that this draft that just happened was a defensive tackle heavy position. We could have gotten a defensive tackle in any of our picks, and they could have been just as possibly productive. Because if you looked at this first game that just happened, he was just dominated. He was non-existent. So if we wanted a guy like that, we could have gotten a guy like that in the second, in the third, in the fourth, in the fifth, in the sixth, in the seventh. We got other DTs there in the draft. We could have gotten them there. So not him, but other DTs. Instead of, drafting what we should have been drafting, what we should have drafted every single pick was offensive line. It is astounding how inept these experts are in diagnosing what's wrong with this team. If you look clearly, it is a negligence on the part of Chris Greer and this front office and how they draft and how they have literally not drafted a premier offensive lineman. We got Teron Armstead, who was he definitely was a good offensive lineman. He was just often injured. So if we could draft a guy who was young and as talented as him, then we would be good. But this guy hasn't been able to. And the truth is, he hasn't even tried. He has not spent a first-round draft pick or traded for a premier offensive lineman. That is the problem. That's absolutely the problem. If you look at everything, especially let's go back to 2023 when things changed, we actually had the best offensive line we've had in years and since. We had Teron Armstead, the left tackle Pro Bowler, right? We had a similar O-line than we have now. We had Austin Jackson playing very well at the right tackle position. And then we also had Robert Hunt, who then went on to the Carolina Panthers. And ever since he departed, we got worse. So we got worse last year in the offensive line. We let a good offensive lineman go, and we got worse. That's what happened. And what we tried to do is what we did this year. We tried to supplement him with an inferior offensive lineman in Liam Eichenberg and now Jonah Sivainea are 2 second-round offensive linemen. They're not the cream of the crop. They're guys that people looked over for other people at their position. And the reality is that's called bargain bin hunting. And that's what we've been doing with the offensive line for a long time. And it's not like I'm theorizing this. That's literally what they have said they're doing. They've said it years in a row that they weren't worried about the offensive line. And that is troubling because the offensive line is the weakest unit on the team. It's horrible. It is one of the worst in the league. And the only reason it isn't obvious is because Tua Tagovailoa's release is so quick. He like everyone knows, we've been exposed again, but this time in the first game of the year, they're telling you he throws a lot to his first read. He gets the ball out quick. So they're pressing and they're covering first reads, and they're making it difficult for him. The reality of the situation is he's throwing the ball so quickly because the pressure is getting there so quickly. If there was more time to throw, he wouldn't throw to his first read or wouldn't need to, or could let that first read literally move and get into space past the defender. That's not happening. What's happening is he needs to make these throws immediately. And it's been like that literally before 2023 and after 2023, where we're having free rushers with no one in front of them at all, Tua hikes the ball and they're literally in the backfield instantly. That is a rarity. That shouldn't happen. And I don't see it ever happen to other teams except the Miami Dolphins, and it happens on a consistent basis. It happens almost once every game. In some games, multiple times I've seen it. I saw Ryan Tannehill get hurt with free rushers. I saw Tua Tagovailoa get hurt with free rushers, and that's just free. That's not going to happen. When it's not free rushers, they're in there almost immediately. That's a problem. That is a problem, and it has hindered Tua. And it has hindered this offense. This offense cannot go with this current offensive line. And then when you have an offense that is so horrible, because right now it is that bad, the defense is on the field all of the time. All of those fat boys need time to rest. You can't have them on the field all of the time. They will get exposed no matter who they are. They could be the Pro Bowl team on defense. They will get exposed if they're out on the field all the time against, Tyreek Hill or guys from the other team who are good and fast. They will get exposed. So the truth is that we need to find a way to block for Tua, to give him time to throw, to give receivers the time to run extended routes, to let plays develop, and for things to work and Tua to throw guys open. He can't do that the way that things are currently structured. And that comes down completely, to me, to Chris Grier. I think that Mike McDaniel, bless his heart, he is trying to just develop a scheme where quick throws, happen often in order to help this crippled offensive line. And the truth is that I thought he was consciously doing this, but it might not be the case, because if they've gone this long without seriously getting help on the offensive line, I think that they're being negligent then, because they know the offensive line is a problem and they're like acting like it's not, or they're that bad at their job that they don't know that it's that bad. And so either way, a change needs to be made. And I really think that this is the season for the change. I think it would be perfect for Chris Grier to get fired. I think if we get destroyed by the Patriots, I hope that Chris Grier gets let go literally that week. And I definitely, like I said, I don't believe in half measures. I think that Mike McDaniel should go as well. I feel like he didn't get, the opportunity here that he deserved, if that's the case. But I do think that that's the way he needs to go. Because it's going to happen eventually. Like when I was during the Adam Gase experiment, I couldn't wait for him to leave either. Same thing happened with Philbin. Same thing happened with pretty much everyone who we've had, because you could see their deficiencies right away. Not good coaches, not leaders of men, not able to, properly execute on Sundays for whatever reasons. All of them have different deficiencies. This time, Mike's deficiency seems to be his grit. People have now called him, a nerd boy who is not getting, a response from his players. They're not playing for him. They don't think he's tough. They think he's soft. And so they think that the players are taking on his personality because he's so laid back. I feel bad for him. The truth is that I think he's not a bad guy at all. I don't think he's a bad coach. But I do think he's tied to the worst GM the Miami Dolphins have ever had. And that is what's going to be, in the end, his anchor. It's going to sink him. And I think that it should be sooner than not, because why even pretend like we're going to bring another GM in here and Mike McDaniel is going to be safe and have all this time? At the most, he'll have one more year and then they'll let him go. And that's just a waste of time. What we need to do is let them go now. Make Anthony Weaver the defensive coordinator into the interim head coach. And the reason why I say that is not because I think he'd be a great head coach. It's because we have people already saying they want him to be the head coach. So if that's the case, I would want them to see what he's like. Can he make a change? If they do respond, I think we should consider it. Anything, we should consider things like that if, he inspires. Because I'll be honest, when I saw Dan Campbell do it here, I wanted to keep him. I was a vocal detractor from letting him go, and everyone was just like, what are you talking about? He's so green. He doesn't have experience. It was just luck. And it wasn't. You could tell back then. When he spoke, commandingly, and people didn't listen to him or listen to me either. So, but whatever, I digress. The truth is, this is what's needed. So we can see what Anthony Weaver can do, or what he's like, which to me will be, I don't think he's ready. He just got promoted here. I don't think he's, well, who knows? Because, you don't really need to be a good coordinator to be a good head coach. I don't believe, you have to know football. But for example, to me, Mike McDaniel, he's an incredible coordinator, but he's not the best or perfect coach. I think Anthony Weaver, maybe he can command the attention, the respect that these guys need. But I'll be honest, I think the damage is done. Like, there's just nothing that is going to fix this franchise or this front office. We need a change of front office, and that includes Anthony Weaver, Mike McDaniel, Chris Grier, the scouting department. Everyone in the scouting department needs to be changed. This team needs to do a scorched earth approach. You absolutely let go of everyone, because I'm thinking about it right now. Let's see who you keep on this team. I don't want Tua anymore. I think he's shown his deficiencies. He's an injury-plagued player. He's an incredible human being. I'm a fan of his. I'm just no longer a fan of his quarterback play. I think that if he went to another team, he would actually do well. I think he'd have kind of like the Daniel Jones slash what's this guy's name? The guy in Seattle now that used to be on the Vikings. Whatever. We all know who he is. His resurgence as well when he left the Jets. Darnold. So when he left the Jets and he went to the Vikings, there was a resurgence. That's what happens when you go to a good team. I think the same thing will happen to Tua. Let's say he goes to a good team with a good offensive line. I think he could have the chance to carve people up. But that's with him not constantly getting hit and not taking hits to the head or having to scramble and things like that. I think that is where you have a Tua that's inconsistent and won't be good. So he couldn't go to like the Browns, no. But if he went to, let's say, a team with a good offensive line, let's go, he went to Philly, but he's not, because let's say Jalen Hurts got hurt or something. He would do great there. He would. It would be like the perfect game manager. But that's not what we have here. We need an overall overhaul of the roster. So Tua would need to go. The running backs, to me, like Devon Achane, bless his heart, fast as hell, dynamic. He's injury prone. And he's small. We need a bell cowbell running back, whatever it is, that is strong, can run, can go on third downs, get the short yardage. It was crazy. We could have had Saquon Barkley had we, been stronger. I don't know if he even wanted to come here, but things like that. We've let a lot of guys go the last few seasons. Saquon was a free agent. Derrick Henry was a free agent. There was also free agent coaches that we just didn't go after, like Bill Belichick. We could have, that's, to me, if we're looking for someone to replace Chris Greer, it's gonna be Bill Belichick. Or it's gotta be someone that has experience. No more wannabe like rookie, new experiments, people who've never been head coaches before. I don't need that. I need someone who's proven that they could do it at an elite level, at the highest level. Something like Pete Carroll would have been great. He's with the Raiders now, so no, that's not going to happen for us. But I'm saying that was like last year. If we made our moves these last few years, we could have been somewhere by now. Instead, we're like stuck in the mud, and it won't be until we make a move on Chris Greer that'll happen. That will change. That's why from here on out, I'm just rooting against the Miami Dolphins. I hope that they get blown out every week from here on out. So not only do we have the first round pick, but that we also get rid of Chris Greer. Because if we were to somehow get the first overall pick, but still have Chris Greer as the GM, and him and his little carousel of ridiculous people make the choice of the first overall pick, then we're still going to be horrible. We're still going to be climbing up a hill and sliding right back down, because he's going to draft another person who is questionable, maybe injury plagued, just not the surefire thing. There's just been so many things, like I can count them. The Lamar Jackson, to me, I never understood us never picking him. A Miami guy right there fell in our laps. And I just, man, when we did not choose him, it hurt my heart. I pounded the table in anger, in sadness, in how much poetic justice we missed by not drafting that guy. When we drafted, who else? Oh man, when we traded, we could have had Jamar Chase. We could have made so many moves. Even the Waddle trade itself, we didn't need to even make. We could have made some decent moves without even making that trade. Whatever. That's a lot of rehashing in hindsight. But the truth is, now that we've seen, you have to be smart and in analyzing what you've seen. This team has only shown you that they do not make good moves, and it's all around. So, for example, we let Christian Wilkins go in free agency. He signed a big contract, so you knew that other people valued him, regardless of what his situation is right now. Then he was a valuable player, and we let him walk, and then we draft his replacement. That, to me, is, so we drafted a first-round DT, and then we let him go, and then we drafted another first-round DT, a low-impact position. It's like, what are you going to just keep doing that over and over? So if Kenneth Grant, you're just going to let him go and draft him again if he's asking for too much money? That just makes no sense. And to me, it was the epitome of what's been going on. It's a shoot yourself in the foot type mentality here with this front office. They don't want to make moves to improve the team, or it seems like it, like bringing in bad backups to back up Tua when you know that he's injury prone. Why would you choose a bad backup for him to come in to the situation if you know that he's, that he's likely going to go down? So who we're going to get? Zach Wilson, the New York Jet castaway? Are you kidding me? Like that? Don't go to the bottom of the bin, of the trash bin, to search for your food. If you're at McDonald's, hopefully open up the top, and in that trash at the top, there's some fresh burgers someone threw. You don't need to dig to the bottom and get the burgers that have been soaked with trash juice for 2 weeks. That's what Zach Wilson is. That's what we got. Patrick Ewers? Are you kidding me? You had tons of chances in this draft to draft Shedeur Sanders. Instead, you drafted Quentin Ewers and expect him to do anything? Like, why are you drafting him? He could see the field one day, and you're actually drafting this guy who no one thought he was anything special. Lasted till the end of, to the 7th round or whenever he was drafted. Like, that was a horrible pick. You had plenty of options to get a substantial upgrade at backup who could potentially start in, the latter parts of the year, even now. But I imagine, like in Shedeur Sanders, or just there were other people. And the reality is, I think that they didn't do it because they didn't want to cause controversy with Tua. They didn't want to cause him to have competition and, have the press of every day, people asking for Shedeur to start or whoever was in there. That to me is the truth. Because to draft the backups or to sign the backups that we have been the last few years, like Peter, what's this guy, Boyle from the Jets as well. Look at all the Jets cast-offs we got. Mike White. Why are we using the Jets as our cast-off farm system for backup quarterbacks? Like, that just doesn't make sense. Use a good quarterback system, like maybe something in Kansas City, something with good quarterback play. I don't know, but not the worst team or the other worst team in the league that isn't us. Because at this point, I can't think of a worse team than the Miami Dolphins, and I'm frustrated. I don't want this team to come back. This team does look like trash. Let's keep going. Offensive line looks bad. Everyone looks bad. Bad unit. Everyone needs to go. We need to draft. I'll tell you right now, if we would have drafted, just focus on getting a brand new offensive line, we could keep the guys that we have and have a decent offense. Because to me, it's evident that what carried this team, at least in 2023, was the offense. The defense is mediocre at best. All right, so I'm coming back from this session. It's really hard to come back cold. I'm finding out, learning on the job, I guess. I learned a lot today. Definitely. How to edit, etiquette, how to talk, how to be at your home, not have your dogs fucking ruin every fucking shot. There's a lot of shit to learn. But I'll be honest, I really liked it. I'm definitely going to put out some more stuff. If you guys like it, please be sure to show me any love you can. See you guys. Time for some sports. South Florida sports. Time for some sports. South Florida sports. So Flo Spos. So Flo Spos. So Flo Spos. So Flo Spos. South Florida sports. South Florida sports. So Flo. So Flo. So Flo. So Flo. So Flo. So Flo Spos.